Hey there, safety friend. Today we're talking about reactive and proactive indicators. And I'm going to answer the question I get quite a bit. What proactive indicators should I be measuring? Let's get to it. This is Safety Bri, your number one safety geek. Why do we have the behaviors that we do? Superheroes in the workplace, right? All of those things that go into making you an effective safety manager. I love what we do. Motivation, learning, teaching, training, teamwork. I geek out over that just as much as I do safety. Hello, my safety friend. Thank you for joining me here today and welcome to the Safety Geek. My name is Bri, your number one safety geek. Thank you for being here. I hope you're having an amazing day. Today, we are going to talk about reactive versus proactive indicators. And I know that a lot of safety managers struggle with the proactive indicators. They don't necessarily understand what to measure, how to measure it, and what to do with that data. So I want to kind of get into that and tell you how you actually use both pieces of data. So both are kind of key to your safety program, but one has a bigger impact. I bet you can guess which one that is. So anyway, the definition of proactive and reactive data or indicators, So reactive are things that have already happened. Reactive indicators are an accident happened. What can we do to prevent it from happening again? That is a reactive indicator. So you're not actually taking action until something bad has already happened. All right, so from your accidents, you can actually get a lot of data. You can get, when the accident happened, the time of day, the conditions that the accident happened under, the tasks being performed, the behaviors and the SOPs that they were following, and all kinds of other things. And you're going to do an accident investigation on that accident as well, which is going to give you even more data. So anything that's derived from that accident ends up becoming reactive indicators, right? So the accident happened and we know that those indicators have caused accidents in the past. We're actually going to use that data to help us find proactive indicators, but just understand that that is reactive data. So anything that you're doing in a reaction to an accident or a bad thing happening, it could be an accident, an incident, a near miss, anything like that, that is reactive. Proactive data are the indicators that you're going to be tracking from before an accident happens or a bad thing happens. It is the watching everybody going, okay, we're going to make sure you're safe so that way you don't get hurt. And how can we make sure that you stay safe type of thing. So proactive happens before an accident happens. So what can we be looking at? What can we be measuring that would give us an indication that we're getting close to an accident happening and we have to kind of step in and make some changes? I want to tell you about Heinrich's triangle. And I know that there's if you really get into the total safety academic world, I was going to say the safety geek world, but it's more of the academic world where, they're really doing all the research about safety science and all of that. There is definitely some pushback on Heinrich's triangle, but I want to share it with you anyway because I think it has some valid points. And when you actually look at how research is done and theories are developed, it's not saying that 100% of the time it's going to be right. It means it's a significant amount of the time it's going to be right. So what Heinrich's triangle says is that for every one fatality, there is a greater number of severe accidents. And for all of those severe accidents, there's a greater number of first aid accidents leading to deriving from a greater number of near misses, deriving from a greater number of unsafe acts and unsafe conditions. So proactive indicators is looking at those unsafe acts and unsafe conditions, because the theory states that if you can get rid of those, then you're not going to have the near misses, the first aids, the severe accidents, or the fatality. And this is where people get into where Heinrich's might not be right, because I can go into a facility that is just awful, right? That they have all of these unsafe acts, all of these unsafe conditions, no maintenance, no safety in place, and they haven't had an accident in 3 years. And I can also go into a facility that is a VPP site that has top notch, that is, way low in accident rate, maybe even zero, and they can have a fatality. So that's where you can get some pushback on it. But the theory still holds strong that if you focus on the unsafe accident conditions, you're going to have less accidents in the long run. You can also look towards the broken window theory, which is a criminology theory, which I've talked about. I do have a podcast on the broken window theory because I absolutely love it. It's a criminology theory that says that if you pay attention to the small stuff, the big stuff tends to reduce as well. So that is what your proactive indicators are looking at. It is looking at getting rid of all of that small stuff, or focusing on all of that small stuff and improving the small stuff so that way the accident doesn't happen. So the question becomes, how do I identify those actions or those conditions that I need to focus on? Or how do I measure them? That's the bigger question that most people have difficulty with. And does that mean that we never look at reactive data? And that's not true. We do look at reactive data. But before I continue, I want to share with you, I have a freebie that you can download that kind of goes with this podcast. And it goes with some other articles I've written on the Safety Geek site as well. So be sure to check them out. So it's called the Proactive Trend Analysis Tool. So it's a way for you to take the measurements of your proactive indicator and actually do a trend analysis on them. So make sure you download it. It's completely free. And it'll definitely help you as you're starting to trend your proactive indicators. All right. So your proactive indicators can come from your reactive data. If you do an accident investigation following an accident and you find that people are twisting while they're lifting, or that the accident happened because he was twisting while he was lifting, and that's how he injured his back, that is an indicator. It's a reactive indicator. You know that person twisted while they were lifting and that caused the accident. But now you can take that indicator and go, okay, well, I'm going to start to proactively look for that behavior in all the employees. So that's where I'm saying you can get your proactive indicators from your reactive data. So that gets put on the list. That is a proactive indicator, twisting while lifting, right? Other ways that you can find proactive indicators is looking at your JHAs, if you have them. The last column in a JHA is how are you going to mitigate that safety hazard? Every single mitigation step is a proactive indicator. You could look at your SOPs if you have safety written into your SOPs or policies and procedures that they're supposed to follow to do the job correctly. Those are all proactive indicators because if they do the job correctly, they shouldn't get hurt. If they're doing the job correctly and they do get hurt, then you have a gap somewhere that needs to be filled. That becomes a reactive response to an accident. Other places that you can find proactive indicators would be your work orders. So if you go to your maintenance department and run a work order report or find out what maintenance items they've been working on, those are all indicators. Those could all be things that cause accidents. And why, like if you all of a sudden look at your work orders and you have a ton of electrical issues, then you need to tighten up your electrical safety policy because something's not right there. Another thing could be inspections. So if you look at your inspection reports and start trending those could be proactive indicators. So that way it gives you other things that you can look at. So now that you have this list of all of these proactive indicators, the next step is going, how can I measure that indicator? You have to have some way to quantify that data in order to measure it so you can see where you are and how you can improve upon it. So I had this location one time that had a major housekeeping issue. Like it didn't matter what time of day, there was just trash everywhere and everybody just accepted it. And they wanted to improve their housekeeping because it was causing slips and falls. It was causing slowdowns in production. But how do you measure debris on the floor, right? It's like, what are we going to do? Go out there and count trash? So you have to come up with a way that like at certain intervals, you're going to come up with a subjective number of what the housekeeping is like or whatever. I don't remember what they finally came up to with that. I know their first point was let's count the trash, but I think I ended them at like, let's have 3 people come up with a subjective answer as to how the housekeeping is at this point in time. And you do that 4 or 5 times a day. And then that becomes your measurement. So that way, and you don't want to do just one person because that ends up becoming too biased, right? So you want it to be a very subjective number. But anyway, my point is look at every indicator and say, how can I measure it? Put it into the proactive trend analysis templates. That way you can track it from there, right? But the important part is that when things are measured, they can be managed. When things are measured, they can be improved upon. You can't just sit there and go, yep, housekeeping is definitely an issue. It's causing slips and falls. We need to improve housekeeping. How would you know when you were successfully improved it? It becomes very, very subjective. So pictures could be one way that you're measuring it too. You just have to have a way to actually really, really quantify that number and come up with a way to measure success. So the next step is that you want to look at all your data. So the law of large numbers states that as your sample size grows, more accurately can you predict your trends. That means you need a large sample size to find your problem areas. Therefore, you have to be doing more inspections. You have to be doing more observations. Maybe you need to get other people's eyes on there, have other people doing inspections and combine the data, have other people doing observations and combine the data. Do more investigations, right? And then you can take the data from that investigation and throw it into your proactive response. You might be saying, well, the only way I could do more investigations is have more accidents. And that's not true. Every unsafe act, every unsafe condition can be investigated. In fact, when I teach accident investigation, we always teach it in a level of like where you are in your accident stages. And if you're at the stage where you're not having that many accidents, we start investigating reported hazards. And why did that hazard even come to be? What created that hazard? And then that becomes a data point as well. So that it gets you closer and closer to zero. So because of the law of large numbers, you need to have a lot of data, and reactive data does not give you that much data. But we as safety managers, we're constantly looking at it. Every month we go to the manager's report and we report on the injury rates and the accident rates and what type of injuries we're having, right? Those numbers never change. Reporting on them every month does you no good unless you're having an accident every single day. So change your reporting structure. Don't look at reactive data. Just don't look at it at all. You know, you do your accident investigation, you get your data points from that, you move it into proactive, you look at your reactive trends on a quarterly basis. Look at them every 6 months even. Get your people thinking not reactively, get them thinking proactively by stop showing them the reactive data. So your proactive data can actually change from month to month. It's better if you look at it over a 3-month period, but it can change month to month. It very rarely ever changes week to week. But month to month, you can look at it that way because your proactive data is actually telling you the climate of your workplace. You know, you can actually see trends in your proactive data of when your people are starting to get overworked, when productivity is higher than normal. Like what if your company made a really big sale and you had to make double the amount of widgets this month? You can see it in your proactive data. If there are supply interruptions like we're seeing right now, you can see the results of that supply interruption in your proactive data because it affects so much in the business. It affects, you know, their behaviors and how they're operating, how they are, you know, following the SOPs. People themselves are more stressed right now because of the economic conditions and the political conditions in the country right now. People are more stressed. That's going to affect your proactive data too. So that's why you want to look at proactive data more in depth and more often, because it gives you a better picture of what could be happening. And if you're ignoring that proactive data, then an accident could happen, especially if you believe in Heinrich's triangle, because you're ignoring all these indicators of an accident's going to happen and you're not doing anything about it. Somebody's going to get hurt. So if you're looking at this data every single month or every single month, then you can easily say, okay, we're seeing an upward tick in people, you know, not wearing their safety shoes. So let's put an initiative in place and reinforce that. Let's start talking to people about it. Let's start training on it before someone's foot gets run over, before a box falls on somebody's foot. So that's why your proactive indicators are so important. Alrighty, my friends, that is all that I have for you today. I could talk about this forever. I love data. I love crunching the numbers. I love creating all the fancy charts and sharing them with my management team. But if you love this stuff, make sure that you get on my mailing list and that you take my free course at thesafetygeek.com/free course. And I will chat with you next week. Thanks. Bye-bye. You know what? I have a hunch that you have a BSF, a best safety friend, who would love to know about this show. Well, don't keep it to yourself. Sharing is caring. Stop what you're doing right now and forward this show to them. They will thank you. And don't forget to check out the show notes and links for this week's episode at thesafetygeek.com.